Hello and welcome to the Mother's Justice Show today here on KKNW 1150. Today is January 5th, 2026. And my name is Chukundi Salisbury, and I'm filling in for our matriarch of the show here in our organization, Reverend Harriet Walden, who just celebrated her 80th birthday yesterday. On the 4th, and we all know how she is such a big fan of birthdays, and it's just a real blessing for her to be able to make it to her 80th birthday, and doing this work. And so once again, she's unable to join us. And so I'm filling in for her, and for full transparency, again, I am her son. And so, yes, indeed, it's a blessing to be here. So today's show, we're talking with folks from the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. We're going to cover some of the work that amazing organization and coalition of groups is doing here in Washington State. And then specifically, we're going to talk about a press release that came out that spoke to the murder of L.J. Causey Jr. Recently. And so as you may or may not know, folks that are just joining the show, this show is an offshoot of Mothers for Police Accountability, which is an organization co-founded by Reverend Harriet Walden, who, in the 1990s, my brothers were, accosted and assaulted by Seattle, Police Department. And, my mother, and along with, other folks in the community, started the organization Mothers for Police Accountability. And, this work has been going on with her for over 30 years, speaking truth to power and having community accountability. She was a founder, founding member, if you will, of the, coalition, the CPC, at the Seattle Police Department here in the city of Seattle, and has worked around, justice issues across the country. So, that's the foundation of our show today, and it's great to be able to sit down here with Elaine and Sonia from the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability, to really talk about how this work continues, because we know that it's an ongoing fight, if you will, to make sure that justice is served in our communities and that we receive equitable and just treatment from our fellow community members and the people that seek to serve us as community members here. So without further ado, I want to bring Elaine and Sonia here on the microphone. Hello, thanks for joining me, you guys.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you, and a very happy birthday to your mother.
Yes, thank you for that. So, as I mentioned in the run up to the show, the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. Now, I remember, doing some work, with one of the breakfasts. We actually had featured, and did some awards with the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. And Reverend Walden is a huge supporter of the work of the coalition. Sonia, can you just take a minute and tell us a little bit about the overall organization, Washington Coalition for Police Accountability, and some of the initiatives and maybe some of the member groups, because it is a coalition?
Yes, thank you. Well, the coalition is founded by family members who've lost loved ones to police violence, advocates, experts, and multiple organizations working together for statewide policies to reduce police violence and increase accountability. And it's really about experiences that families have had, and the history of racism policing, and the fact that it affects all of us. It's policing has really been used in a discriminatory manner, and it just violates a lot of the community, Black, Brown, Native, Latino, Pacific Islander, and Asian. And so the underlining of our work is for police accountability. and I'm the board director. Let's see. So the policies that we've worked on in the past, there were a lot of policies passed back in 2021, and they made a huge impact, but there's still work to be done. And for this year, we have some great policies that we're hoping can go into effect. And Elaine, I can let you go ahead and speak on some of those policies for the 2026 session.
Well, I don't have them pulled up.
No, so, before you go into that, Elaine, so I heard you say, so I understand it is a coalition, and are there member organizations, or is it member mostly like family members? Because I remember there are some other organizations that are involved in the coalition, no?
Yes, there are. Where there's impacted families, there are advocacy groups, ACLU,
okay.
Faith Action Network, Spokane Advocates Chair. There's just Partners for Change, Clark County Advocates, Peace Justice League of Spokane, Disability Rights Washington.
Okay. Yeah, a long list. I think, really what I was getting at, and I wanted our listeners to know that, and obviously I know some information about the organization, but I wanted you to say it, is that this is a true statewide coalition. As you mentioned, Sonia, that there's, folks on the ground in Spokane. There's folks on the ground in Tacoma. There's folks on the ground in Seattle and Auburn and across the state, helping to, keep an eye on things and move the agenda forward. And one of the things I really like about this organization, I actually did see the legislative agenda piece, in the fact that you guys are not only working in community on the ground in terms of applying pressure around law enforcement, such as the press release we're going to get into, but also working in Olympia and in other local jurisdictions to get policies changed. I had Council Member Rob Saka on the show a couple of weeks ago. Actually, I was just last week, and we talked about how the average person doesn't understand or is not aware of the power of the police contract. Oftentimes, that they're not aware of the policies. They think it's a person, like the chief has all of these powers, but oftentimes there's these other laws and policies that were already negotiated. For example, paid administrative leave, right? And so anyway, it's just good to see that the coalition is doing the work on both fronts in terms of the work in terms of policy, but also awareness and community. So that's great. Obviously, I know that you guys come through this work through tragedy. And not to trigger you, but obviously you've put it in your the names here on our call. Do you want to talk just briefly about how you came to this work in the coalition?
I would first like to just add, you were talking about on the ground and statewide. We have just rolled out this last year a pilot program where we are covering 3 regions. Sonia and I are in the South Sound. We have the Southwest, that's up by Vancouver, and then we have the Southeast, which is the Spokane group. Ours, of course, is like the largest. I mean, we've got all King County. And so that's been really impactful because we come together as smaller groups of families impacted in our regions, and then we meet as an entire coalition and then share back and forth. And I just really wanted to let you know that that has been probably one of the most, I think it's probably one of the most important things that we have rolled out in this last year.
That's excellent. Yeah. I mean, that's really good to know that there's these, I just think that oftentimes, and no disrespect to any other particular group, because we know that folks, are coming to this work in authenticity and also oftentimes through trauma and, traumatic events such as, the murder of a loved one. So everybody, is really walking in authenticity. However, many times folks call themselves a large group and it's just one person or two people, right? And the fact is, when you have a true coalition that's working locally together in smaller groups and then able to roll that up to a state level, I think that's a great, way to look at it. And it's a great educational piece for people that want to organize that, that yes, it's great to be able to work with, your neighbor or the person across the street or the person even across town from you, but to really engage across the state, this is the kind of networking you need to do.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, that's something that Sonia and I, our heart is really there because we're giving a voice to the voiceless. We're really putting out there that from our own pain and our personal experiences, we are then making systemic changes and hopefully changing police culture.
Right. Well, that's good to know. So obviously I know about your son, Elaine, and we talked about it, I think, in on other shows. And Sonia, you came to this work, through some loss as well, right?
Yes. So my son, Giovanni Joseph McDade, he was murdered in the city of Kent on June 24th, 2017. He was pulled over in a traffic stop for a non-moving violation related to his plates. And it was a pretextual stop. Javon stopped and complied and left the scene. The officers followed him, boxed him into a cul-de-sac, and brutally murdered him. He was 20 years old and unarmed.
Well, you know what? I want to, of course, this happened in 2017, and as we know from losing loved ones, that it'll never be the same. And so condolences for your son, and I commend you for, along with Elaine, to keeping, his name alive and doing this work to affect change. So, right now we're listening to the Mother's Justice Show here on KKNW 1150. My name is Chukundi Salisbury, and we're sitting here with representatives of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. In the next segment, we'll be right back, but, make sure you're following us on socials at Facebook and Instagram, and that's MFPASEA on Instagram and Mothers for Police Accountability on Facebook. We'll be right back.
Looking for media that truly represents us? Converge Media is where culture meets truth. Seattle's leading Black-owned media network, bringing you powerful stories, local news, and conversations that matter. From the morning update show to groundbreaking community coverage, Converge shines a light on the voices that shape our city, our leaders, our artists, our families. Stay informed, stay inspired, stay connected at whereweconverge.com. That's whereweconverge.com. Converge Media, telling our stories, our way.
Hey, y'all. It's time we take care of what's ours. The Black Legacy Homeowners Hub is now open at the McKinney Center, a safe space to learn, connect, and protect our family homes. Whether you're fixing up your house, passing it down, or just trying to hold on, we've got real people, real help, and real answers waiting for you. So come on by. Drop in between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. at the McKinney Center on 21st and Jackson. Let's keep our legacy strong, together.
When our children aren't safe, none of us can rest. Mothers for Police Accountability has been standing on the front lines for decades, demanding justice, truth, and transparency in Seattle. But we can't do it alone. We need you, parents, students, neighbors, to join us. Volunteer, speak up, be part of the movement that keeps our communities safe and our voices heard. Visit mothersforpoliceaccountability.org. That's mothersforpoliceaccountability.org. And stand with the mothers who never stop fighting for what's right. Mothers for Police Accountability. Love in action for justice. Being a Black homeowner in the Pacific Northwest comes with questions, and you don't have to find the answers alone. Black Homeowner Magazine is your trusted source for support, education, and community, helping you protect your home, your equity, and your generational legacy. Inside every issue, you'll find real stories, expert guidance, and local resources, all designed to keep Black homeowners informed, connected, and rooted right here in the Pacific Northwest. Because ownership is more than property, it's community. Black Homeowner Magazine, where ownership meets community.
Hey, welcome back to the Mother's Justice Show here on KKNW 1150. My name is Chukundi Salisbury, and I'm filling in for the Reverend Harriet Walden, who is unable to join us again today, but she is in our prayers. And so, yeah, today's show, we are in the actual theme of what this show was founded on. We are here with representatives of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. We've got Elaine and Sonia here. And one of the things I wanted to talk about here in this segment and moving forward, is the murder, if you will, of LJ Causey. You guys put out a, press release a couple weeks ago or last week, and of course we got it and wanted to get you guys on the show here to just talk about this incident and bring some awareness to it. In fact, one of the things 2026, I'm really trying to get away from calling things an incident when we know that folks were trained to do better, right? An incident, sometimes you think of people, well, it's just, hey, it's incidental contact. This is not incidental when the same thing happens all the time and people say that they've been trained to not have this happen. So with that being said, Elaine, why don't you go into just what happened with LJ and why this is obviously every time something like this happens, there's cause to bring awareness to it, but why was there a press release on this particular one? And the work and the word that you're trying to get out?
Well, one of the key things in the commission that came out was about anyone that was having a mental health crisis, sleeping, something that is not your normal 911 call. And from our understanding, and as things come out, Mr. Causey removed himself from whatever the situation was and was in his, from what we can figure out, in his truck and had fallen asleep. And so if you can only imagine, you're in a car, you're sleeping, the windows are up, you're not hearing any directions coming at you. And they didn't do anything that they were supposed to do in their training for de-escalation. They didn't observe it, they didn't stop, they just reacted, and they came upon this guy, and we don't believe that he heard anything. We think that, they just went to automatically shooting him without really finding out why is he in this car and giving him a chance to respond. And that concerns us greatly. That was what really flagged us and brought us to the point of putting out a press release. And,
you know what? I read some of that, and, I saw on the news, according to the witness account, that the shooting happened almost instantly after he woke up, right? So, you touched on this, but, maybe Sonia, how does this specific case highlight the gap between, the policy that we hear about, the policy training, and the actual field performance here in Washington State?
Well, in 2018, we passed de-escalation training, a law that was passed, Initiative 940, which included de-escalation. Now, de-escalation is the foundation of every law enforcement's response whenever possible. Officers are trained in strategies such as time, distance, cover, verbal engagement, and crisis intervention to slow encounters and reduce the likelihood of lethal outcomes. When these tools are not fully, they're not applied, the risk is irreversible harm. And in this case, it doesn't sound like any of these tactics were used.
Right. Yeah, no, clearly. You know what it reminded me of is, and I really slapped myself on the hand, because there's just been so many. It's oftentimes hard to remember, or they blend together, which is a sad thing in itself. But, the name is escaping me, but the young boy, I believe he was in Cleveland or wherever, well, he was 12, and they just rolled up on him. Huh?
Tamir Rice.
Yeah, Tamir Rice, right? So this just reminds me of even a worse kind of Tamir Rice situation where, when do you have time to even respond, to these lawful orders, if you will, when, you have folks that are just so quick to act? And that's just, really sad, in my opinion. So I know that you guys, mentioned in the press release, that you guys are, the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability is calling for an independent investigative, authority. Why is it critical for civilian review boards to have, like subpoena power rather than relying on, I think the standard is just to have, this adjacent, entity, right? If it happens in Auburn, then you have Kent, right? Or whoever, investigate. Why is this important to have this subpoena power as civilians rather than, because I think, just playing the other side of the fence, you hear from law enforcement where they say, well, we're the ones that are trained to be able to look into these incidents with the critical, law enforcement eye, right? And that's what I've heard the rebuttal, but I'd like to hear from you guys, why is it critical, to have civilian review boards that have subpoena power?
I personally believe because of the narrative that goes out. And so if they come in, they are biased right from the beginning. It's about protecting themselves, their union backs them. And by having a separate entity, just briefly on Jesse Saray's case, the Port of Seattle was the individual entity that investigated what happened in Auburn. And it was really important because that case was the test pilot of the Initiative I-940, which Sonia and families before Jesse's murder will never benefit from, but they got to see it move forward. And that was all about the policy. It was about the fact that, the outcome of that was almost all of it was about policy, training, that they did not follow protocol, and it ended in the way that we hope to see other cases come forward, and that was the sentencing of 16 years and 8 months for second-degree murder and first-degree assault of Jeff Nelson. So it's really important that they can't use that as an excuse anymore. They can't sit there and say, oh, I felt threatened or fearful for my life, especially if these are unarmed people. Jesse was unarmed. Sonia's son, unarmed. They're not combative. They stopped. They did not, push that to that point. And so that's why I think it's really important that we have groups like ourselves and family members like us who have personally gone through it that continue to keep an eye out there and reach out to the families that are impacted that are coming, after us.
Right. I mean, and that the end of that statement is one that's, most likely true, right? But it's something that we hate to see is that after us, right? Like, why do we have to have anybody after us, right? I had, Chief Barnes on the show here a few weeks ago, and he couldn't talk about it specifically, but there was a shooting a officer involved shooting here on Othello Street in Seattle. And there was a lot of outrage around that and just how that happened, because of how folks said that, so in that particular case, this person, I believe they said he was armed in some way, but it just didn't seem like the less than lethal options is, I think, what the community was really reaching, saying, well, where the less, so there's the de-escalation, of course, and you guys are really doing this work. So I don't, for the listeners, to be clear, I'm not the expert, and I haven't taken, I don't know all of the ins and outs, but I most certainly am passionate about this work. And so in this particular case, there's the issue of somebody being unarmed and being and complying. And then there's these issues where, or situations where people are armed and are not complying. And I think in that particular case, folks were saying, well, where in those cases, there still should be less than lethal options to be able to try to subdue, this person. So I think we're going to talk about it a little bit more in the next segment, but I know that, you guys have some specific, accountability measures that we're looking to get the state legislature to pass, in the next session to prevent some of these similar tragedies. And just to be clear, just so folks that are listening, some of that information can be found on the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability website. And again, we'll talk about this now and in the next segment, but, I noticed that we're calling for independent prosecutions, AG investigations reforms, sheriff eligibility and standards. And then there's, bills of support with police tactics. And so this is where the coalition part comes in, right, Sonia, where you're able to help get the rest of the team and folks across the state to do this advocacy work. Am I correct on that?
You're correct. Each year we try to work on policies that, is meaningful change in changing the police culture and tactics. So when we come back, we'll go over some of the policies that we're presenting in the upcoming session.
Right. And exactly. So, and this is just before we go, we're going to go to the break here, but I really need listeners to remember that, that this work is ongoing, and we need to keep a continual eye, a continual reach back with our legislatures. It's not just when something happens. This work is year round, right? And whether there's a shooting or not, right? This work needs to happen, and accountability is a full-time type of thing. So this is Chukundi Salisbury, and I'm here with Elaine and Sonia from the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. And we'll be right back after the break here on the Mother's Justice Show on KKNW.
Looking for media that truly represents us? Converge Media is where culture meets truth. Seattle's leading Black-owned media network, bringing you powerful stories, local news, and conversations that matter. From the morning update show to groundbreaking community coverage, Converge shines a light on the voices that shape our city, our leaders, our artists, our families. Stay informed, stay inspired, stay connected at whereweconverge.com. That's whereweconverge.com. Converge Media, telling our stories, our way.
Hey, y'all. It's time we take care of what's ours. The Black Legacy Homeowners Hub is now open at the McKinney Center, a safe space to learn, connect, and protect our family homes. Whether you're fixing up your house, passing it down, or just trying to hold on, we've got real people, real help, and real answers waiting for you. So come on by. Drop in between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. at the McKinney Center on 21st and Jackson. Let's keep our legacy strong, together.
When our children aren't safe, none of us can rest. Mothers for Police Accountability has been standing on the front lines for decades, demanding justice, truth, and transparency in Seattle. But we can't do it alone. We need you, parents, students, neighbors, to join us. Volunteer, speak up, Be part of the movement that keeps our communities safe and our voices heard. Visit mothersforpoliceaccountability.org. That's mothersforpoliceaccountability.org. And stand with the mothers who never stop fighting for what's right. Mothers for Police Accountability. Love in action for justice. Being a Black homeowner in the Pacific Northwest comes with questions, and you don't have to find the answers alone. Black Homeowner Magazine is your trusted source for support, education, and community, helping you protect your home, your equity, and your generational legacy. Inside every issue, you'll find real stories, expert guidance, and local resources, all designed to keep Black homeowners informed, connected, and rooted right here in the Pacific Northwest. Because ownership is more than property, it's community. Black Homeowner Magazine, where ownership meets community.
Hey, welcome back to the third segment of the show here on the Mother's Justice Show here on KKNW 1150. This is Chukundi Salisbury, and I'm filling in for Reverend Harriet Walden, who is unable to be here with us today, but we most certainly are keeping her in our prayers. And I'm joined with Sonia and Elaine from the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. And just before the break, we got into a little bit of our legislative priorities of the organization. And this is where, we're going to get into that. I just want to remind our listeners that this work, again, as I mentioned, is ongoing. But this is where the rubber meets the road, is in the policy and in the law. And oftentimes I think people in our community, especially communities of color, we focus on the person, the sheriff or the chief or whoever, or the city or the King County prosecutor or whatever, right? But just as important or even more important is the law and the policy. And this is where these are formed during these sessions. So there's going to be a short session in Olympia this year. And you guys have some bills and priorities that you want to make sure that folks that are interested in supporting this work can call their legislatures and making sure that they support these bills. So so Sonia, let's start with you, and maybe you could talk a little bit about the priority bills, the bills that are priority for the Washington State Coalition for Police Accountability.
All right, thank you so much. Well, one of our bills is House Bill 5584 and House Bill 1740, which is establishing an independent prosecutor for police use of deadly force cases. So, as you know, law enforcement and prosecutors work closely together, and we want to establish an independence, right? So that we can have trust in the process. As of right now in the state, there only have been 5 cases in the history of 85 years where officers have been prosecuted. 5. And the most recent one was Jeff Nelson last year, and it's been over 30 years. So when we talk about establishing independence from the prosecutor's office, what we're talking about is having a separate office that only works on officer-involved shootings.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a huge one. For folks at home, if you're writing these bills down because you're ready to call your state senator, most certainly keep track of those, but you can also log on to the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability website, which is WCFORPA.org, and you can find this body of work. What are some of the other priority bills this year, Elaine?
The other one is House Bill 1056, which is the Attorney General investigations. And I'm just going to read it straight off. It's accountability for police and sheriff departments is an important part of cultural change. This grants authority to the state attorney general to perform investigations of agencies where there is an alleged pattern and practice of violating the civil and constitutional rights of persons. This state-level authority will promote a basic level of quality policing across the state. And so basically what it is it will allow to take a deeper look, like in the case of Causey, of what happened and really look at it. And we're not at the point yet of, quantified immunity, but I'm sure at some point that will come into play, because it's starting to happen in other states where a police officer themselves can also be under investigation. Right now, it's mainly the police departments and sheriff department.
That's it. This is an interesting bit of legislation. And what comes to mind when you say that, and I saw, I heard you mention the U.S. DOJ is that perhaps under this legislation there'll be some ability to have some kind of consent decree, right, on a local level, and a state level, right? Because that's what you're saying, is that this organization, fill in the blank, police department, has had a history of violating people's civil rights, obviously through police shootings and murders, if you will. No, and I'm just wondering, is that something that could happen under this legislation?
Well, that is the goal.
Go ahead, Sonia.
Go ahead.
That is the goal of this legislation, is so that, we don't have to wait for the federal Department of Justice to step in and say, hey, there's a problem, there's an issue. We want to investigate these patterns in this local office here. Instead of waiting for that, because that could take years and years while all of these misconducts and patterns continue to happen and people continue to get murdered by the same officer or by the same city. And so this legislation is exactly what you just said, that, we want to have the authority to do these investigations for our state.
And we believe that if you go back to the Jeff Nelson, he had 85 assault charges against him and misconduct. He killed 2 men prior to Jesse. And if DOJ or Auburn Police Department, mayor of Auburn, would have done something, it could have prevented the 3rd death, Jesse. They could have actually done it on Isaiah Obit. They are re-looking at Isaiah Obit's case right now.
Right.
And that is what concerns me greatly, is that they kept this killer, the serial killer, in their police department.
Right. And so
it's a lot of harm.
So yeah, I see that this is obviously tied to the Attorney General's office. Have you heard anything from it's from the AG, Nick Brown, about this particular bill, in legislation?
Were you at that meeting?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I was wondering if you've heard anything from Nick Brown's office in terms of their support or lack thereof of this enhanced authority, if you will, through this legislation.
Yes, I believe I was there. We met with him last month, and he supports this. Now it's just seeing what the legislators do.
Oh, okay. Wow. So that's a big deal to have the state attorney general, because that's going to actually add a body of work to their office, right? To have to put some kind of local consent decree on some town, right? That's going to be.
And you saw what happened when they lifted it off Seattle. Boom, multiple deaths right after they lifted it. So,
right.
They need to have eyes on. I mean.
Well, again, that's what I said. I mean, this work of accountability, I think people sometimes think of it as, oh, we're going to get to the promised land, if you will. But it's just like anything else, left unchecked, power left unchecked, right? Ultimately, there always needs to be checks and balances, right? And there'll probably never be a day where there doesn't need to be anybody auditing or looking at what we do, what happens and what these departments do. So, most certainly. I know that there's some, I noticed there was something about eligibility and standards. What's that, legislation about, Sonia?
Oh, okay. So, we want to modernize eligibility requirements and standards for sheriffs and police chiefs, and ultimately, it's to have a training and for them to get certified and have a standard that everyone follows in Washington State through the certification.
Right. And so that would that apply to like elected sheriffs as well? Because I think that there's kind of a couple of different routes now, right? The King County sheriff is appointed, but then you have I believe the Pierce County sheriff though is elected still, right?
I believe so. But we want to make sure that that all law enforcement, no matter what branch, what agency, whether they're chiefs, sheriffs, marshals, we just want to make sure that the community, there's confidence in law enforcement leadership. And by clarifying their eligibility requirements, having these certificates, and it sets a standard. It does a background check on procedures, and it just makes it so that the legislation aims to promote professionalism,
right,
transparency, and consistency in law enforcement practices throughout Washington.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, that's going to be a good one. I guess we'll see how that gets applied when and if that gets passed. Before we go into the next break here, I just wanted to briefly tap in and talk about the police tactics. I didn't see a bill number associated with that on the 2026 legislative priorities, but I did see something that most certainly is of interest to many people in Washington. I'm sure that folks will be wanting to get behind the one of the tenets of this police tactics, as you mentioned in the priorities, is facial covering prohibition, right? And this would prohibit law enforcement from covering their faces. That's a huge deal right now with ICE and folks in the communities, and also regulating the use of the ALPRs, and that's license plate information. Can you talk a little bit about this police tactics work here, or is that going to be a bill?
Well, with the face covering, that goes back to that quantified immunity, because if they're covering their faces, they're being protected. We don't know who they are. And I don't see why they feel they have to wear badges with their badge number. So why are they covering their faces? And they are even pushing it further that anybody that is in some kind of thing, it could be a person that's doing security at schools. It could be, people in, out where there's protests happening. And, to me, if you're going to be out there doing that work, then you need to take those coverings off. You need to show that we are trusting in a police officer, because half the time we don't even know if they're just hired guns.
Right. No, I think that that's most certainly something that many people in Washington can get behind, as well as the license plate information, where you saw, I believe it was Olympia or somebody locally that just took out their entire system of tickets to make, just because they could not secure the information. So this is all great. It's good to hear about these priorities. And we'll talk a little bit about that, when we come back. But then we'll talk a little bit more about LJ and who he was, before he was, killed by the police. This is Chukundi Salisbury here on the Mother's Justice Show on KKNW, and we'll be right back. Thank you.
Looking for media that truly represents us? Converge Media is where culture meets truth. Seattle's leading Black-owned media network, bringing you powerful stories, local news, and conversations that matter. From the morning update show to groundbreaking community coverage, Converge shines a light on the voices that shape our city, our leaders, our artists, our families. Stay informed, stay inspired, stay connected at whereweconverge.com. That's whereweconverge.com. Converge Media, telling our stories, our way.
Hey, y'all. It's time we take care of what's ours. The Black Legacy Homeowners Hub is now open at the McKinney Center, a safe space to learn, connect, and protect our family homes. Whether you're fixing up your house, passing it down, or just trying to hold on, we've got real people, real help, and real answers waiting for you. So come on by. Drop in between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. at the McKinney Center on 21st and Jackson. Let's keep our legacy strong, together.
When our children aren't safe, none of us can rest. Mothers for Police Accountability has been standing on the front lines for decades, demanding justice, truth, and transparency in Seattle. But we can't do it alone. We need you, parents, students, neighbors, to join us. Volunteer, speak up, be part of the movement that keeps our communities safe and our voices heard. Visit mothersforpoliceaccountability.org. That's mothersforpoliceaccountability.org. And stand with the mothers who never stop fighting for what's right. Mothers for Police Accountability, love in action for justice. Being a Black homeowner in the Pacific Northwest comes with questions, and you don't have to find the answers alone. Black Homeowner Magazine is your trusted source for support, education, and community, helping you protect your home, your equity, and your generational legacy. Inside every issue, you'll find real stories, expert guidance, and local resources, all designed to keep Black homeowners informed, connected, and rooted right here in the Pacific Northwest. Because ownership is more than property, it's community. Black Homeowner Magazine, where ownership meets community.
Hey, welcome back. This is Chukundi Salisbury here on the Mother's Justice Show. And I'm filling in for Reverend Harriet Walden, who's not able to join us again today. But again, and I love to say that she is in our prayers and we are pulling for you, Mama. And so today I'm joined by Sonia and Elaine from the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. And we've been talking about not only the coalition, but some of the specific legislative priorities for this upcoming session, and some of the gaps in this recent police murder, if you will, with a young person named LJ Causey. And let's talk a little bit about LJ, right? I think that, one of the things I think a lot of people are basically a little ashamed of. It's hard to remember all the names, right? Because there's been so many of these, over the years. And so it's important for us to uplift those names and talk a little bit about who each person was. Most certainly we had talked in the past, we've talked about your son Elaine, and we just heard about your son Sonia. But let's talk a little bit about LJ, and you guys had put out this press release. Can you talk a little bit about, and we know he was a father of three, how is the coalition and specifically members like yourselves, helping the family and the community through, the trauma of this loss and losses like it? Why don't you take that one, Sonia?
Thank you. We've tried to reach out to the family, and I believe Elaine has connected. Elaine, do you want to speak a little bit about that?
I reached out to his fiance, I believe the mother of the three children. She said that right now they're just processing. How we leave it with the family. It's kind of weird when you reach out to people, but I personally, when I got reached out, it was one of the best gifts that I ever received. Because Sonia and another person had first reached out to me, and they gave me time. They just said, we're here for you. And then when we had our first vigil, they helped put that together for us. And I remember at our vigil, and then I'll talk about Mr. Causey, 10 days earlier, Enosa Strickland, EJ, was murdered by an Auburn police department. And his parents showed up for Jesse's vigil. And I kept looking at them, and I wasn't sure who they were. And I went up to them. I said, can I ask who you are? And they said, our son was just killed 10 days before. And we felt we needed to be here with you in support. And that's kind of where we come in from the impacted family. Yes, we work on policies. Yes, we work on making life and situations better for other families, but we also reach out to these families if we can get hold of them. That's hard. Right. It's almost like stalking. You have to go and do a lot of digging. And she seemed pretty receptive. She said she just needs to think about it. And I said, well, let us know. I said, you know, there are media that wants to speak to you, to hear your story, to humanize your loved one, because that is really the part that could hurt any family, is when they go in and they dehumanize our loved ones without even knowing who they are and what was going on in their lives. So that's kind of what we try to offer, but we try to kind of do it very carefully. Like, you know, like today I texted her and I said, hey, I'm just checking in. Are you all right? Right. And that's it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's really important. We had a person on the show a few weeks ago. Her son was not murdered by the police, but was murdered all the same. And, one of the things we talked about was having ways, for people to be able to have time and be able to reach out to others without trying to, you know, obviously it's much more difficult to try to take things into your own hands against the police, right? But we find people in community, that, you know, retribution, right? And ways to help deal with some of the anger, right, that comes from this, right? I mean, of course there's sadness, but there's a lot of anger. And how do people, so it's good to hear that, the coalition is able to, help people, work through some of those feelings by being there for them and showing up like you just mentioned. You know, how does you know, in your press release, you mentioned the cycle of violence, right? In the statement, and it really affects the willingness of, community members to cooperate with law enforcement in other areas of public safety, right? So how can we, continue to have this accountability, and, you know, local consent decrees if necessary, as we talked about, but also have people call in when we know there's somebody checking car doors on the street, right, and breaking into your neighbor's house. Like, you know, where do we fall in on that around the Washington? What does the coalition stand on those kinds of things?
I can answer this. We want to make sure that there's public safety for all, and that includes individuals that includes police violence. You know, many times police violence isn't considered, really, right? I know they have a job to do, and it's very hard. And as long as they do what they are supposed to do under their guidelines and training, they can still police the community without violence.
And at the end of the day, just like the police families and our families, we want everyone to come home alive. And so, you know, when I hear of a police that is killed, you know, while they're out there, like the woman that was hit by a car just recently, I had empathy. It isn't like we don't have any feelings.
Right.
And I think that's what makes us a very unique coalition, is that we talk and meet with police and sheriffs and commissioners and training people, because you can't, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but you can't just be out in the street saying FTP all the time. Right. You've got to be at the table. You have to. And, you know, maybe we are a little bit on the reform side, you know, but that is the way that you're effective. If you're going to change policies and change the way of police culture, you've got to be at the table with them. And that's hard. I mean, I know how hard it is, because every single impacted family member that came to trial with me and sat in the courtroom and looked across at 20 deep police officers, chief of police, the mayor, all sitting behind a killer cop.
Yeah, that's really difficult, right? And I think that that's really one of the things I had talked to the police chief about when he was on the show, is like, because he keeps saying he wants to build trust and community and have people come, and I'm just like, okay, well, that's going to be a really hard sell when we, because we do want to find out, because I mean, on the flip side, we have a lot of killings like Michelle's son that I was mentioning, where somehow there are people that are finding the courage or being able to step out of themselves and call in. And so they called in, and she called in and told the person that had killed Michelle's son, and they actually arrested him. And so there's going to be some work around that. But I think that's just really continues to be a difficult conversation, if you will. For listeners that want to support the coalition's priorities, how can people get involved with the work that you guys are doing? Is it just, you don't have to obviously have a loss yourself, to be a member of the coalition as an individual, or and then organizations, you don't necessarily have to only be working on police accountability issues to find empathy and solidarity and be a part of the coalition. Can you talk a little bit about that and how folks can tap in with you guys?
Well, you can find information on our website. You can reach out to any of us, impacted family members that are listed on there. You can also reach out to your local legislators for your city, your county, your town, and get involved and know what's happening when it comes to community safety and what that looks like, and how you can, vote or write letters, or if you want to just volunteer with the coalition and or within the community, and however you feel that you can make an impact, whether it's a small step or a giant leap.
So, go ahead.
On Martin Luther King Day, on the 19th, we're having our lobby day also in Olympia.
I was just getting ready to ask you about that. So is there going to be a lobby day where folks can come down and support these bills in person? And you're saying that's going to be on the MLK Day?
Yep, and we'll be sending that press release out. You better be on top of it, sir. But that press release is going out, I think, Tuesday, because our South End region is having our press conference on Friday to discuss that.
Well, that's really good to know. The other thing that I think it's important for listeners to know, because we most certainly have many homebound folks that are not able to get out to a legislative day, but many of these bills, oftentimes they need folks to testify, in favor of or against or what have you, depending on the language, right? Because sometimes you have bills that seem like they're good for us, but then they're really not. So we have to testify against those, that are brought up by other people. But regardless, we need people to call. We need people to call down there, and you can do that online. You can actually sign up to testify. Can you talk a little bit about that we do need people to get behind these bills, and support them, this session and beyond?
Yes, if you go on our website and you go to our resources page, there's a list of how do you find your legislator, how to contact your legislator, and then register to vote. And then it has a lot of information on, we'll keep posting updates as the days go on throughout the session. There might be some action alerts. So just look out on our website, and also you can also sign up on our mailer, which will send you emails with information and updates.
Okay, well, yeah, that's
amazing. They they'll say what the pro and con is. So like if, this is why you should do it. This is the con, and then it gives you the opportunity to sign up to be a virtual testify or to go in person.
Exactly. So this is very important work, and I thank you guys for doing this work. And most certainly the rest of the coalition, this is in alignment with why this show and this organization was started. And most certainly is in alignment with what Reverend Walden is all about. So I want to thank Elaine and Sonia for being here on the show today on the Mother's Justice Show. You can most certainly find out more information about the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability on their website. And of course, you can continue to support Mothers for Police Accountability and the Mother's Justice Show at mothersforpoliceaccountability.org. Follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. And let us know what you think of the show. Thanks again for listening today, and we'll talk to you soon.